and all those who help keep history alive here, we are honored to welcome you to our Juneteenth celebrations. Maple Grove Cemetery is now 151 years old. For more than a century and a half, this sacred ground has held the stories of families, immigrants, veterans, artists, teachers, laborers, community leaders, and ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives. Here at Maple Grove, we believe a cemetery is not simply a place of rest. It is a place of memory, a place of learning, and a place where history still speaks.
Today, as we celebrate Juneteenth, we remember long struggle for freedom, dignity, justice, and recognition. Remember those whose names were written boldly in history, and also those whose names were nearly lost to time. Among the more than 115 Civil War veterans buried here at Maple Grove is Joseph Teagle, an African-American sailor who served in the United States Navy during the Civil War. Born in Virginia in 1839, Joseph Teagle served aboard the USS Lehigh, an ironclad monitor of the Union Navy. His work was dangerous, difficult, and courageous. Ironclads were cramped, punishing vessels filled with heat, smoke, noise, and constant danger of war. Yet Joseph Teagle served, endured, survived, and helped defend the Union and the cause of freedom. His grave here is simple, but his story is mighty. His name reminds us that African American men and women were not merely witnesses to American history, they shaped it. They fought for it, and they carried forward.
Today's program is dedicated to Theodore Henry Shackelford, a Canadian-born poet and violinist whose life and work deserve to be remembered. Born in 1887, Shackelford was a man of talent, discipline, and deep feeling. His voice rose from humble labor and found expression through poetry and music. His writings carried the warmth of folk tradition, the dignity of everyday people, and the heavy shadow of a world at war. His work earned comparison to Paul Laurence Dunbar, one of the great literary voices of African American history. In dedicating this Juneteenth celebration to Theodore Henry Shackelford, we honor not only one man, but the larger tradition he represents, the tradition of Black creativity, resilience, music, poetry, memory, and truth.
We remember that art has always helped people endure. Music has carried sorrow and hope. Poetry has spoken when history tried to remain silent. And memory has kept alive the names that time might otherwise erase. Here at Maple Grove, we dedicate this celebration, as we said, to the Civil War soldiers and a number of people that are here. We've worked to honor our African-American brothers and sisters whose lives and legacies are part of the cemetery's story.
Just skip that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also honor those from more recent history, including Anthony Mason, the beloved New York Knicks legend, whose resting place we are proud to care for here at Maple Grove. His name still brings pride, memory, and emotion to so many New Yorkers. His story reminds us that legacy does not end when a life ends. Legacy continues whenever the name is spoken, a story is shared, and a new generation learns. That's why today matters. Juneteenth is a celebration, but it is also a remembrance. It asks us to look back honestly and to move forward with purpose. It reminds us that freedom delayed was still freedom fought for, freedom claimed, and freedom cherished. So today, through music, memory, fellowship, and history, we gather in gratitude. We gather to celebrate African American heritage. We gather to honor those who came before us. And we gather to say clearly no one should be forgotten. Welcome to Maple Grove. Welcome to this celebration of Juneteenth. And welcome to a place where history comes alive. Thank you. Silence your cell phones.
Good afternoon, and Yes, thank you so very much. If you would silence your phone. Now, I may need some help on doing that because I am challenged when it comes to technology. So, you know, back in the old days, you'd be able to pull the back off of your phone and take the battery out to make sure it didn't bother anybody. Well, they ain't got no backs to these phones. My gosh. So if you accidentally hear mine, please have mercy on me. And come help me. Please, quick. Because the storytellers today, you don't want to miss a word, a movement, a memory, anything that they share with you today. So again, please silence all of your phones. Our storytellers today will be Miss Thelma Ruffin Thomas. If you can just raise your hand so people who don't know you will be able to. Somebody knows you over there. They're waving back. Now, we don't have time for me to go through all of her history and bio, but some of the key things about Miss Thomas is that she's an international storyteller. She has been to so many countries sharing her stories. She has been to Russia. She has been to Turkey. She has been, where else have you been? Give us three. Africa, yes. Australia. And Fiji. That's just to name a few. And many of her stories will be stories shared as she has gathered them and shared them internationally. Now, again, we thank you guys for being here today with us celebrating Juneteenth. What an honor it is to be here. We're here to celebrate the Juneteenth, and what's so special about this is because it's a national holiday. So we are so happy that all of you guys are here on this really warm day celebrating Juneteenth and the stories. And our next storyteller is Deanna Carroll. She too is an international storyteller. And she will be sharing stories that are mostly from the perspective of historical, correct?
No, today I'm going to share.
Why you changed it on me? Oh, I need help, y'all. Not only with the phone, but keeping her story straight. So what, well, I'll let you tell everybody what it is when it's time for you to share your story. Well, most of the time, her stories are historical stories. And she shares so much history, things that we never even thought of. How did things get invented? Who invented those things? Sailors, and so many other things. So hopefully, as you see her name appear in your social media, that you go and check out some of her stories and learn a little bit about our American history. And lastly, I am a featured storyteller, but we have two other of our fine distinguished guests who will be also sharing history and stories and part of our program. And that is Reverend Dr. James Singletary over here, and he's a professor at Columbia, and he too, the list goes on. But we're so honored that he is part of our board of directors. And our next person is Marcus Dargan. I don't know where he slipped to, but he will also be presenting part of our program today. And he also is a professor, I'm not sure what college. City University, thank you. And so he also will be sharing. And then coming back to me on the last one, I was recently elected the president of African Folk Heritage Circle, and I'm so honored to be a part of this and have been since almost the beginning. In 1996, when the African Folk Heritage started under the leadership of Dr. Joyce C. Duncan. And Miss Thelma Ruffin Thomas. So they have seen so many changes throughout the years, and we're so happy that it's continuing to bring stories and memories to our audiences throughout the 5 boroughs, locally and also internationally. And that leads us to, did I miss anybody? I was talking about the featured storytellers, but we do have other members in the house. And we have, most of you know, Rainbow D. She is a member of African Preservation Circle and has been for many, many years. Yeah. And we also have another member who's a board member, Keith. Keith sitting in the back, please raise your hand. Thank you for being here. And thank you guys again. And we're going to get started with our program. Oh yes, someone reminded you guys that if you got a raffle ticket, please hold on to it because we're going to be raffling off some things towards the end. If you did not get one and didn't sign up, please make sure that you do so. Okay, so James, Reverend James, Dr. Reverend James. I forgot. Me? I did? Yeah, I said I was the president. Yeah, I said I recently elected as the president. There go Mr. Gargan, trying to hide. So, yes, Marcus, what university do you work at?
City University, New York at City Tech and Baruch.
Oh, you're a busy man. We're all busy and we're glad that you are here also. So thank you guys again, and we're now going to get started. And as they say, mostly in the Black program, you're going to be led by your program, your written program by, not today. We're going to be jumping all over the place telling stories. So, but we are going to start off, as they do usually in a Black church, with libation and prayer to ask the Holy Spirit to bless this place that we are in. So, Reverend Dr. James Singletary.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lynn. And we say namaste to all of you. Namaste. You say it back, okay? Namaste. Thank you. We're excited to be here today, and we will continue on with the program with the pouring of the libation. As we pour libation, it's a ritual practice in the African culture that we use to honor, to remember our ancestors, and to build community and to come together as a people aspiring to live in what Dr. King described as a beloved community. So in the practice of pouring libation, again, we honor our God, we honor ancestors and our most recent ancestors, people who are important to us. So I will lead us through, it's like a call and response, and then I will tell you when to share. Amen. Amen? Amen. So, Olodumare, the Supreme, and you say Ashe.
Ashe.
To Nyame, the Eternal One, and you say
Ashe.
Oloru, the owner of heaven.
Ashe.
Mawu, nothing is greater.
Ashe.
Nzambe, sovereign of universe.
Ashe.
Chakwu, the great spirit.
Ashe.
To the spirit guides who watch our ancestors sail across the waters into a new and a hostile land, we say,
Ashe.
I am the Reverend Dr. James Singletary, the child of Ethel Simmons and James S. Washington. To the familiar and the immediate ancestors, we ask all the participants here today to honor the names of ancestors, people that are important to you, who have shaped and influenced your life, who have transitioned and who are now into the ancestor realm. I pour libation today in honor of my grandmother, Roberta S. White. Ashe. Call out their names. Ashe. 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 Call them out. Anybody that you want to remember. Ashe. Ashe. Lorraine Hansberry. Ashe. Dr. Martin Luther King. Ashe. Ashe. Malcolm X. Maya Angelou. Any other names that you want to call out? Du Bois. Ashe. Frederick Douglass. All of the unnamed slaves who lost their lives at sea. Anyone else? And to the element of earth, please continue to hold and sustain us. Make us guardians of our water and the mountains and the air. Help us to understand the importance of each of our parts, no matter how large or small. We say Ashe. And to the children of this village, to the children of this community, we are here to remember, to recommit, to reimagine, and to renew ourselves for a community and for families that we serve through these types of programming here. In your name and the many names of the manifestations and revelations of the Great One, we say, Ashe, 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 oh. All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to call my brother and colleague, Professor Marcus Dargan. Sorry about that.
I'll take a round of applause. Professor Marcus Dolan. Frederick Douglass, July 5th, 1852. What to the Negro is the 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all the other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers, your hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up the crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on this earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. What to the American slave is the 4th of July? Frederick Douglass, July 5th, 1852. Today, we gather not simply to remember history, but to stand in its living echo. Juneteenth is more than a day of freedom. Was finally announced, it is a reminder that truth has a way of finding a voice, that hope has a way of outliving oppression, and that the human spirit, though burdened, has always found a way to rise. Our ancestors understood this. When their names were taken, they remembered who they were. When their languages were silenced, they spoke through song. And when their stories were forbidden, they carried them in memory, in rhythm, in prayer, in code, sharing one to another. Because they knew something that we must never forget. That is why we gather as storytellers. We do not simply tell stories, we tend them. We carry them as one generation carries a flame to the next, careful that the wind does not extinguish the stories that we tell. And every story that we share is an act of remembrance. And everyone who listens becomes a flame bearer for that story. Today, we honor those who walk before us. We honor not only their suffering, but their laughter, their imagination, their faith, their wisdom, their love, and their unwavering belief that tomorrow could be better than today. So as we celebrate Juneteenth, may we continue the sacred work of rebuilding what has been broken, restoring what has been forgotten, and renewing the stories that remind us of who we are. Happy Juneteenth.
Ashe.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm going to be the first one to follow him and talk about those traditions and why we do what we do. Back when the emancipation happened, many of the slaves went their separate ways, but they still celebrated emancipation. Now that we have a national day of freedom, Juneteenth, it's sometimes called Freedom Day, Emancipation Day, along with Juneteenth. So if you hear any of those, they're all the same. But it made me wonder, in today's time, will we start a new tradition, keeping with some of the information that we've grown and loved from the old past celebrations of Juneteenth? Or will we just take this day and just do nothing? It reminded me of a story that my mother told. Now, my mother, she was the best storyteller that ever was. And I would have to say, I might get in trouble with y'all, but I would say my mama was a storyteller that would ring circles around all the y'all mamas put together. Oh, yeah. I'm glad y'all agree. Thank you. Well, Mama would always say, you know how you tell children, now you tell me you gonna jump off of that bridge just because somebody else told you to do that? You better know why you do what you do. She said that when she was a little girl, she used to do that too. She would not think, why are you doing what you do? Until her mother told her about her great-grandmother that was a slave. Now, they call her Aunt Sally Sue on the plantation. Now, Aunt Sally Sue was the best cook in all of New Orleans. I happen to be from Louisiana. Proud Louisianian on good days. So she said that her great-grandmother, who was a slave, again, was the best cook. She could cook crawfish etouffee, she could do shrimp po' boys. Oh, and don't talk about the gumbo. The gumbo with the sausage, the gumbo with the crabs, the gumbo with the okra. And when I got here in New York, y'all was putting all kinds of stuff up in the gumbo. I'm like, that's not a gumbo, that's a soup. They were putting some bones up in there and some carrots in there, and it was weak like water. I digress. So, she, the great-grandmother, was the best cook that ever was. And Mouser's wife, Miss Julie, she wanted to learn how to cook like Aunt Sally Sue. But she knew Aunt Sally Sue wouldn't give up her recipe because that was something special to her. Because see, back in those days, they would take the slaves' name from them. They would take their stories from them. They would take everything. But Aunt Sally Sue knew that nobody wasn't going to take that from her house to cook all of these delicious foods. One of old Mouser's wife, her favorite recipe was roast. Now, Aunt Sally Sue had a special recipe. What she would do is she would get all of her seasons. Back in Louisiana, we call it the Trinity. That would be the onion, the garlic, and the celery. Y'all been to New Orleans? You been to New Orleans?
Not yet.
Oh, okay, because she knew that Trinity. Well, not only did Aunt Sally Sue have the Trinity, but she had some other spices that grew in the garden. Now, what Aunt Sally Sue would do, she would take the pot, and she would take that pot, put it to the side, and oil it real good at the bottom. See, not everybody knows you gotta oil it real good at the bottom. Then she would take that roast and this great big knife. She would jab that knife into that roast and jab it again, and everywhere that she jabbed, she put all of those spices. And she rubbed it down and pat it down real good. Then, after she did all of that, she would take that great big knife and she would whack off the ends and throw it away. Now, she never did that in front of old Nasser's wife. That was her secret. Well, when Aunt Sally Sue had a daughter, she wanted her daughter to know the secret. But back then, children were told, you listen and don't speak. So she listened, but she kept wondering, why does she keep whacking off the ends of the roast and throw it away? I mean, the food was the best in all of New Orleans. But why? Well, the question was never answered until my mama's mama asked the question. Because she wanted to know, why do y'all whack off the ends? And so they said, well, go and ask Great, because she was still alive, almost 100 years old. They went and asked her, and they said, is the reason that your roast tastes so good is because you whack off the ends and throw it away? Why do you do that? She just looked at him and said, baby, the reason that I whack off the ends of the roast is because I can never find a pot big enough to put the whole thing in. Tradition. Know why you do what you do. So as we begin to celebrate this national holiday of Juneteenth, remembering what all the ancestors went through before, and adding new traditions, don't follow the crowd. Create your own. So I thank you, and hopefully that's a food for thought. Thank you. Okay, so we have Reverend Dr. James Singletary coming back up to the podium.
Thank you, Miss Lynn. Let's give it up for Miss Lynn. I'm going to share with you a slave narrative today. It's called A Letter of Slave to Former Master. Dayton, Ohio, August 7th, 1865. To my old master, Colonel P.H. Anderson, Big Spring, Tennessee. Sir, I got your letter and was glad to find that you had not forgotten Jordan and that you wanted me to come back and live with you again, promising to do better for me than anybody else can. I have often felt uneasy about you. I thought the Yankees would have hung you long before this for harboring rebs they found at your house. I suppose they never heard about your going to Colonel March to kill the Union soldier that was left by his company in their stable. Although you shot at me twice before I left you, I did not want to hear of your being hurt, and I'm glad you are still living. It would do me good to go back to the dear old home again and see Miss Mary, Miss Martha, Allen and Esther and Green and Lee. Give my love to them all and tell them that I hope we will meet in the better world, if not in this. I would have gone back to see you all when I was working at the Nashville hospital, but one of the neighbors told me that Henry intended to shoot me if he ever got a chance. I wanted to know particularly what the good chance is you propose to give me. I'm doing tolerably well here. I get $25 a month with victuals and clothing, have a comfortable home for Mandy, and the folks call her Mrs. Anderson. And the children, Millie, Jane, and Grundy go to school and are learning well. The teacher says Grundy has a head for a preacher. They go to Sunday school and Mandy and me attend church regularly. We are kindly treated. Sometimes we overhear others saying, them colored people were slaves down in Tennessee. Of course, I tell the children they feel hurt when they hear such remarks, but I tell them it was no disgrace in Tennessee to belong to Colonel Anderson. Many darkies would have been proud, as I used to be, to call you master. Now, if you will write and say what wages you will give me, I would be better able to decide whether it would be to my advantage to move back again. As to my freedom, which you say I can have, oh, there is nothing to be gained on that score, as I got my free papers in 1864 from the Provost Marshal General of the Department of Nashville. Mandy says she would be afraid to go back without some proof that you were disposed to treat us justly and kindly. And we have concluded to test your sincerity by asking you to send us our wages for the time we served you. This will make us forget and forgive old scores and rely on your justice and friendship in the future. I served you faithfully for 32 years and Mandy 20 years at $25 a month from me and $2 a week for Mandy. Our earnings would amount to $11,680. Add to this the interest for the time our wages have been kept back, and deduct what you paid for your clothing and 3 doctor's visits for me and pulling a tooth for Mandy, and the balance will show what we are in just title to. Please send the money to Adams Express in care of V. Winters Esquire, Dayton, Ohio. If you fail to pay us faithful labors in the past, we can have little faith in your promise in the future. We trust the good maker has opened your eyes to the wrongs which you and your fathers have done to me and my fathers in making us toil for generations without recompense. Here, I draw my wages every Saturday night, but in Tennessee, there was never any payday for the Negroes as more than they were for the horses and the cows. Surely there will be a day of reckoning for those who defrauded the laborer of his hire. In answering this letter, please state if there would be any safety for Millie and Jane, who are now grown up, both good-looking girls. You know how it was for poor Matilda and Catherine. I would rather stay here and starve and die, if it come to that, than have my girls brought to shame by the violence and wickedness of their young masters. You will also please state if there has been any schools open for the colored children in your neighborhood. The great desire of my life now is to give my children an education and have them virtuous habits. From your old servant, Jordan Anderson. And P.S. Say howdy to George Carter and thank him for taking the pistol from you when you were shooting at me. Thank you.
I love his math. I mean, he got it to the penny. That was good, Reverend Dr. James Singletary. Thank you for sharing. And that was a submission by one of our members, Rainbow D. So thank you, Rainbow D, for submitting that wonderful, wonderful letter. Now we're moving on to another fabulous storyteller who has, like I said, many, many years of internationally sharing stories. Our own, I forgot to tell you, that she was the president up until recently, and she nominated me to try to fill or walk behind or stand on her shoulders, and I am just so honored to be the president of our African Folk Heritage Circle. So please put your hands together, please, for our wonderful Miss Thelma Ruffin Thomas.
So you better pay attention to this rap of mine. If you can't keep up, you'll be left behind. My stories have a reason why they've got to be told. To remind all you youngins about our people who were sold. They were taken from their homes in Africa, you see, but they never stopped believing that one day they would be free. I traveled to the lands where my ancestors are from. Ghana, Sierra Leone, the Gambia some. To hear firsthand what it was like there now. To prepare my newest story so I could take this vow. The foods of these countries are a sight to be seen, and tasted and savored upon your tongue is quite keen. Besides our past history, I prepare much more, including biblical, lyrical, and other folklore. Songs of praise, including stories of Naomi and Ruth, the trials and tribulations of Sojourner Truth. Civil rights, Juneteenth, the freaky and bizarre. Tubman King, the falling of the star. Poems, facts, and letters are just my cup of tea. Traditions to pass down to kids who sit upon my knee. Celebrations abound when I step in. You get to hear a tale of love or the ravages of sin. Sinister, alarming, offbeat, or funny. The blessing of a sister who goes out making money. I spread my words with laughter, so come by and hear my tale. Just remember when I'm done to put that check in the mail. Don't let my words offend you as I'm running out of time. I just want to have some fun with one last rhyme. You know, a storytelling woman has got to do what she's got to do. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now then, wouldn't you? My name is Thelma Ruffin Thomas, just to let you know. I'm a storytelling woman going fast, not slow. Whoa! Have you heard? Thank you. Have you heard of Opal Lee? Opal Lee waved to her grandson, Buddy, as he barreled across the park. Buddy zipped past lines of picnic tables covered with platters of barbecue, baked beans, tomato tarts, and raspberry cobbler. Buddy ran to the blooming tree where Opal Lee held court. Her braided hair was a silver crown. Her eyes were twinkling stars. Buddy said, "Great-grandma, tell us a Juneteenth story." When Opal had been a youngin', like the children at her feet, her granddad, Zach, told freedom stories on his wooden porch. As Opal Lee remembered his words, she lifted her hands and cheered, "Juneteenth means freedom." And now Opal said, "It's story time." Once upon a blazing sun, black bodies were bought and sold like cattle. Black folks plowed the fields, but never were allowed to own land. Black women cooked the food, but were not allowed to feast on roast and ribs from the slave owner's table. African American children cleaned the one-room schoolhouse, but were not allowed to learn to read or write. Earning and learning were against the law. Slavery was a thief. America's slavery dragged on like a plague until January 1st, 1863. Enslaved African Americans eagerly awaited for President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation to go into effect at midnight. However, in Texas, there was still a stronghold in Confederate territory that kept my folks, the enslaved folks. The white enslavers defied President Lincoln's words. Black bodies remained in bondage. For 2 years, 5 months, and 18 days more, the year was 1865. The day was June 19th. General Gordon Granger marched through Galveston, Texas, with the Union Army. The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the President of the United States, all slaves are free, he proclaimed. It was a day of jubilee, perfect for Texas. Barbecue, all the delicious delights the people had been denied during servitude. "Grandma," Buddy said, "what was Juneteenth like when you were a kid?" Grandma Opal unwrapped another story. She She said blacks and whites lived separately when I was a child. Jim Crow signs littered old Fort Worth in every place. Black families were banned from Forest Park Zoo except one day of the year. On Juneteenth, we could picnic, party, and ride the Ferris wheel in Forest Park Zoo. But he groaned and shook his head. The old days don't sound good, but he said. Grandma Opal said, I spent good days on my granddaddy's porch reading poetry, books, and some memories are good. But some memories cut and bruise. My saddest season started on Juneteenth Day, 1939. An angry mob with flaming sticks burned my family's brand new house. The police made no arrests. My family moved away, and yet the embers burned from that fire still lives in me. Opal Lee led a movement to make Juneteenth a national holiday. For 10 years, 2010 to 2020, she walked across America and collected more than 1.5 million signatures to make Juneteenth a national holiday. It was a journey complete with rejection and disappointment. Nothing stopped Opal Lee. And when she was 94 years old, President Biden signed legislation to make Juneteenth a national holiday, commemorating the end of American slavery. And on Sunday, June 14, 2022, Opal Lee was honored in New York at Carnegie Hall. Recently, in 2024, Opal Lee was gifted by Habitat for Humanity with a home on the same land her family owned, the one that was burned down nearly 80 years ago. Opal Lee is still alive today. And if any of you are interested, you can get that book in the library. I went to the children's department, and there was the book, and there was a picture of her. And you can go and read it for yourself and read it to your children. But it's just amazing what one person can do to get things changed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Thelma, for sharing that wonderful, powerful information that we may have heard of her name, but we didn't know the rest of the story. So thank you so very much, and your rap. So we definitely won't forget who you are. No, no, no. Going fast, not scared. Thank you so much. I just wanted to add to Thelma's description of Opal Lee, but not only that, but about the flag, the Juneteenth flag. Most people think that it's the Pan-African colors, but it's not. The correct Juneteenth flag is over there, the colors are there on that table, and also hanging beside the banner. It's red, white, and blue to represent America, because we are all American citizens. The star in the middle represents the great star of Texas, the Lone State Star of Texas. Now, they had started celebrating Juneteenth in 1980. And as we know, when Emancipation Proclamation, as everyone has said so far, the message didn't get down to Galveston until about 2.5 years later. And when the people heard about it, they realized that they were free, and immediately they started celebrating. They went to the churches there. They went and gathered up as much as they could with their families on the plantations, and they moved as far as they could, and also trying to find some of their families. So on the next year, on 66, That's when Texas, Galveston, Texas really started. And they had strawberry soda pop. They celebrated with barbecue because after all it is Texas, in the best Texas. I think somebody in Tennessee would say no, right? Or Kentucky, one of those. But yes, the Lone Star says their barbecue was the best. And also they had cakes and pies to celebrate Juneteenth of freedom. And they would dress up in their best clothes that they had made and had to hide. And that's why, in tradition, we understand why you see people dressing up, why you see people eating certain foods in celebration of things that they could not enjoy before. And as we move into this national holiday and starting and continuing with the traditions, it is so wonderful when we know why we're doing what we do, because then it means so much to us. So I just wanted to show that to you, the flag. It is not the red, green, and black for the Juneteenth. And the starburst represents new beginnings. And again, the red, white, and blue is America. We are Americans. So, we're now going to go to our next wonderful storyteller, Miss Vienna Carroll. Come on down. Oh, y'all can do better than that. Come on, y'all.
Well, I want to tell you a food story because we have been having little food. You look so beautiful. I'm going to take a picture of you. You look so beautiful. Anyway, I would like to tell you a food story, but first I'd like to share with you a little bit about the history of food in black people. Well, you know, we were brought here because we had expertise in farming. We knew how to plant and prosper with the cotton and the rice and the tobacco. And that's what made us valuable and what eventually brought wealth to the land. So also when we came, because we had that expertise in farming, we were able to put little plots together for ourselves so that we could grow a little food on the side so we could survive. And as we became more conversant with the plants here, we were able to forage. And so we could also thrive. We could survive and also thrive. And then came the Civil War and the end of slavery, and there was no longer any free labor, but that was like not acceptable. So what happened is they created new laws. What they did is they took the public land away, so we could not forage, and we could not plant on the land. They made criminal trespass. And then they arrested you for anything, spitting on the sidewalk, because the 13th Amendment, as you know, has that exception in it for slavery is over, except if you're in prison, you can be enslaved. So that's the prison farms came up, and then of course there was also sharecropping. But no matter what, here we are today. We have continued to survive and sometimes thrive. Now I know me as a child, my family didn't have very much, but you know, we made do with what we had. We got that government cheese, we got that government butter, and I learned how to cook by watching my mother use these things. I know your great grandmother cooked, but my mother. So I just remember I had to watch my mother to learn how to cook. And the one thing I really loved to watch her cook was apple pie. Apple pie, apple pie. I love my mother's apple pie. I especially love to watch her make it. You know, because I had to learn how to cook by watching my mother, and while that wasn't always very successful, she didn't care whether I knew how to make apple pie or not, because she loved it herself. She just loved to make it, and I loved to watch her. And she made the best apple pie, my mother.
How good
It was, girl, it was the best apple pie. And now that she has gone on to heaven, I make the best apple pie. I do. You know how they say the way to your honey's heart is through their stomach? Now, I'm not a home wrecker. But my apple pie, I'll take your man. I'll take your woman. Yeah. And let me tell you how I know. I know this because there's a man in my neighborhood. His name is Country, and he come help me do little things around the house sometime when I can't manage. And I give him a few dollars. It's all good. Now, Country got a woman who is a little watchful, because Country's very busy, if you know what I mean. He's very busy, so she's very watchful. Her name's Sheila. Me and Sheila don't have no issue, because I am not a home wrecker. I am happily married, and Country's not my type no way. So one day, I needed some curtain rods hung. I'm like, Country, can you come help me with my curtain rods? He said, sure, he could come. I was a little light on money. I said, Country, can I make you an apple pie? He said, sure. I'm like, okay. So he came over, put the curtain rods up. I gave him the apple pie. So he went on home. A few days go by. I see Sheila in the street. I'm like, hey, Sheila, how you doing? She started looking at me with the third eye. She said, I'm good, girl. How you? I'm like, Sheila, did you like the apple pie, girl? I didn't give her no one piece of that pie. Country ate up that pie. I'm like, oh. Can I give you the recipe? Would you like to? You'll give me the recipe? I'm like, sure, Sheila, I'll give it to you. Like, I'm going to give it to you, because So, I told her how to make the pie. Did she do what I told her? No. And you know how I know? Because I said, Sheila, I ran into a few days after that. How did the pie come out? Oh, girl, it came out good. He really liked it. I did my own thing, and I'm like, okay, I can't never make no more apple pie for Country, because she'll be in his face asking, do her apple pie taste better than my apple pie? The answer to which is no. So here is how you make it. Okay, so you gotta use, this is very important, Granny Smith apples. Don't use no other kind of apples. Granny Smith apples, which are sweet and tart, like a black or brown woman. Use about 5 or 6, 7 if they're a little bit puny. Turn your oven on to 350. All right. Now you're gonna take the skin off the apples. Make sure you get out that hard part in the center and the seeds, and you're gonna cut them up into wedges. Put them in a big bowl. I'm gonna tell you why in a minute. Put them in a big bowl. All right. So then the next thing you do is you use half a cup of sugar. Don't use no more sugar and make it white sugar. Use half a cup of sugar, which is going to bring out the sweetness and the tartness of them Granny Smith apples, like a black or brown. All right. Now, next, nutmeg. You know nutmeg comes in the little nuts, right? So just go to the store and get you some of them nuts. They're not expensive. Get you a nut. And on the knobby side of the grater, you're gonna grate the nutmeg right on the apples, goosh, 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 about 8 or 9 times. That's one of them is goosh, goosh, goosh. Don't ask me how much. I told you I watched my mother. All right, goosh, goosh, goosh. That's one. Goosh, goosh, goosh. That's 2. Goosh, goosh, goosh. About 8 or 9 times. All right. Then the cinnamon. Now, you do not need to get the royal Himalayan cinnamon that was only picked on June 3rd on the dark side of the moon, all that. But neither do you want to use the cinnamon that's been in your spice cabinet for the last 20 years. So get you some relatively, fresh cinnamon, and now you're going to sprinkle it in over them apples. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. That's 2, right? About 8 or 9 times. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. All right. Then the final thing you're going to do is you're going to reach in the flour bag and you're going to get a finger's full of flour like that. Not a handful, don't put no spoon in there. A finger's full of flour, and you're going to sprinkle it over there because it's going to thicken that mixture. And then what you're going to do, this is the part I love to watch my mother do that. You're going to toss the apples in the bowl. That's why you have a big bowl. You're going to toss the apples until it's all mixed up, right? Okay, there you go. You got the apple mixture now. Now come the crust. Now my mother, she made a fabulous crust. Me, I live in Harlem. I have a kitchen that is the size of a postage stamp. My kitchen is so small that my refrigerator is in my living room. So I buy my crust. Shoot me. I buy the crust. You know the Pillsbury one that is not frozen, it's beautiful. You put it in your own pot plant, put it there, put the bottom crust, then you put your apples in it. They make a nice mound. Make sure they make a nice mound. You can put 8 or 9. 8 is a lovely number for me with this recipe. I don't know why. 8 or 9 pats of butter all over the apple mixture because it's going to melt down. And so then you put the top crust over, and then you're going to have to flute it. Flute around the edges to close up the pie. Or you can use tines of a fork. I've seen people do that. But you want to close up the pie, and then you want to put slits in the top of the pie, about 8 or 9, so the steam can come up. My mother, next to your grandmother, was the best. She made fabulous. Everything looked beautiful too. And so, all right. And so then you want to put it in the oven's hot now because you done turned it on to 350 quite a while ago, right? And you put it in there and you wait about 45, 50 minutes. It's going to bubble over. That's when you'll know it's done. And if you really want to check, you can stick a knife in one of those slits because you do not want a crunchy apple pie. Who want a crunchy apple pie? Raise your hand. Nobody. All right. So then you take that out and you let it cool down and you give somebody a piece of that apple pie and they're going to follow you down the street. I'm trying to tell you. Now, I'd just like to share with you one more small memory of apple pies when I was a child. We had moved out to the suburbs, and my father could walk to work, and it was a hot day, and my mother decided that we was going to have a picnic and pick him up after work. So she made the fried chicken and the potato salad and whatever else she made that was so delicious, and the apple pie. And then the picnic basket. You remember when everybody used to have a picnic basket? And put everything in a picnic basket, and all of us kids piled in the car, and then we went and picked my father up after work, and then we went all uphill and down Dale till we got to Sam Lewis Park, which stood at the top there, and they had pavilions with tables and rock formations you could climb as a kid, and trails and big old trees, and the Mennonites were there, and the Amish were there, and it was just beautiful and nice and cool, and we spread our food out and we had the meal, and it was just so fabulous. And as we were packing up to go, we saw a storm coming way off over here. So we packed all our stuff up in the vehicle, and then we went and we watched the storm come to us. Because it was really dark over there, but it was still sunny and beautiful over here. And we watched the storm come, and it came closer and closer and closer. And finally it got to us. And then those first drops hit us, and we went laughing and shrieking to the car, where we got in and were warm and comfortable and safe. Apple pie. Apple pie. I love my mother's apple pie.
Now y'all know I'm gonna try that recipe and see who I can get to follow me, baby. I love that story. Thank you so very much. I'd like to share a story that I just heard. And again, keeping with my little theme of tradition. How many of you guys have heard the term watch night? You have? Watch night. Again, it's a tradition of praise and worship on New Year's Eve. And it started right after emancipation. Because people then started celebrating because the president signed emancipation on the eve of a new day. And so for traditions and many, many years, people celebrate Watch Night. So I recently heard this story from one of my students. Her name is Juliet Holmes, and she gave me permission to share this story. She said when she was 8 years old, she and her family were Catholic, and they never heard the term watch night. But her sister's best friend, Laura, were Protestants, and they observed watch night. She said that Laura's mother came and asked her mother if the girls could go to watch night. The only thing is, they didn't tell the little girls what watch night was. What did it stand for? Juliet said that she was about 8 years old and her sister was like maybe 12 years old. And they were all excited because they had never been to watch night. And here it was in the winter. They're usually in the bed by 8 o'clock, but that night they were going to be up until almost midnight to see a brand new day, and they were going to watch night. They got all dressed in their beautiful after Christmas clothes. They had on their winter hats and scarves, and they lived in Savannah, Georgia. And the area that they lived in, you from Savannah? No? Well, they lived in the kind of like the rural area, so there were no street lights. And it was dark, she said. And at 8 years old, you're usually in the bed by that time, so you don't know that it's so dark. And then all the trees made it seem even darker. Well, Laura's mother came to Juliet's house, got them, and she was all so excited to introduce them to something that she and her family had been practicing for years and years. She was so happy to introduce watch night to these two precious, innocent little girls. They started walking down the road in the dark. And they were walking and walking, and it was quiet and serene. And as they got to the church, because Juliet and her sister had never been to the church before. They didn't know where the handle was, and they couldn't see because it was so dark. Very dark. Well, Laura's mother knew where it was because she was a member of the church, and she put her hand on the doorknob and she told the girls to go on in. Go ahead. Let's find you a seat. Well, inside the church, because it was watch night, and it was the girls didn't know where to go and sit. So Laura's mother said, come sit over here, dear. She knew exactly. She had memorized every bench. She had memorized every bench that had been dedicated to this generation of people. And y'all know how they do in those churches. They got a special seat that nobody better go sit in if they don't want no Sunday trouble. Well, Laura's mama knew, don't let them sit there in the dark. So she had them to sit kind of like in the middle of the church. But it was so dark, Juliet said she didn't know nobody was in there. She didn't hear a sound. She didn't see nothing. She could not even see the whites of people's eyes if they were in there. It was so dark. Well, as they sat there, all of a sudden, Juliet and her sister heard someone say, "Watchman, watchman, what time is it?" Juliet said she and her sister just started shaking because they didn't even know that somebody was in there except them. And the watchman said, "It's 11:30. And then it got quiet again. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. They just sat there in the dark. The very dark. Then they heard another voice, and a different voice. And it was a more shallow voice. "Watchman, watchman, what time is it?" Watchman said, "It's 11:45. Juliet said they just shivered in their seats because they still couldn't see nobody. And they just kept hearing these voices. And they talked about what time it is. And they still didn't know what watch service was. What was watch night? And you couldn't talk in church because you know you can't talk in church. Can't talk in church. So they still sat there shivering and holding on to each other. And Juliet said they was praying, "Lord, we want to go home. We want to go home right now. But it's so dark, we don't know how to get home." And then as they were praying, someone else shouted out, "Watchman, watchman, what time is it?" "It's 1 minute to midnight." When they said 1 minute to midnight, Juliet said she was so surprised that from the back of her, she heard people crying. She didn't even know they were there. Then she heard people praising the Lord that they made it through another day. They made it through almost another year. Then she said when it became midnight, the lights came on. She said people was running up and down the aisles, screaming, "Thank you, Lord, we made it to another year. Hallelujah, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus." At 8 years old, Catholic, never seeing anything like that before. They were petrified. And they still didn't know the meaning of watch night. And so they were so happy when Laura's mother finally brought them. Now, she said, even when they got ready to walk home, that was still dark and very dark. Not only were the people in church frightening them, when they walked out, then they heard gunfires going off and fireworks going off. And everybody was singing and happy, just like it was after they heard about about Emancipation Proclamation. Well, Laura's mother brought them home, and Laura and her sister were all cuddled up, almost like one little person. And Laura's mother asked, well, how was church tonight? How was what tonight? Mama, don't ever let us go back over there. And she said from that day, now she 84 years old, from that day, she ain't never been to watch night again. And you can't blame her. And so finally she had to find out what watch night is. As a grown woman, she said, again, traditions. Know why you do what she do, and she's very happy to now know what watch night service is. Just thanking the Lord for that day, Emancipation Proclamation, and we celebrate that every New Year's Eve, that we made it through that year, and looking forward to a brand new beginning, almost like the starburst on the flag. Thank you. And thank you, Juliet. Now we're going to have, thank you. Now we're going to have Marcus to come up. And y'all, I'm so sorry, that's my phone dinging, dinging, dinging. I told y'all to help me. I saw somebody looking at me, but y'all didn't come up here and help me. Y'all fired. Come on, Marcus. Marcus, and I'm gonna try to turn this thing off. I guess my dinging was trying to help me with the watch. Yeah. Watch. That's what it was. It was dinging the time for me. Yeah. I'll take that.
Marcus, so just for a second.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Watchman.
Thank you.
Truly, what time is it?
Thank you. I told y'all I'd take applause. I had not planned to share again. However, as we were sharing in Juneteenth and celebrating, I had come across a little story that happened this morning and inspired me to share something that I created a few years ago, actually a bit over a decade ago. So as Lynette and I were walking out and looking, very Africana-esque out of her building, there were two people, and they happened to be white people, and they said, Happy Juneteenth. And I guess they can tell by our energy and all that we were celebrating Juneteenth. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. And as we were walking out the building, I told Lynette, you know what? When white people say Happy Juneteenth, maybe they can give us like a reparations, like a little $10 in a card. Like in Chinese New Year, you have a little red card, maybe a little blue, red, white, and blue card, put some dollars in it towards reparations. And so I wonder if we can maybe start that this year. I take checks, cash out. Zelle. And so it reminded me of many years ago, 2006 actually, the issue of reparations was something that was really, we were talking about a lot in America. And as an artist, whenever an issue touches me, I always like to write a play or a poem or something connected to that. So I did write a play that was inspired by my thoughts and ideas of reparations, and it was called Antichrist Lament. Very briefly, it's about a young man who is a poet, and he is joins a social activist organization, African American led organization, and one of their objectives is to attain reparations. It was performed at New York's Poets Cafe. It was nominated for the Dogo Award. One of two of the awards I was nominated for. The other one I lost to with a king, so that's good. Who's in him? Yay. And so I'll take applause. And so this is a poem from that, and it's about, it's called Don't Believe the Hype. And it's about a relationship between Mother Africa and Uncle Sam. Talking about a twisted love affair gone wrong between Mother Africa and Uncle Sam. Now, Mother Africa stands stout, with her hair held high, her back straight, filled with the knowledge of ages, liquid black skin, full stacked thighs, swollen breast, and deep brown eyes, lips as sweet as a honeybee's nest. The world laid its head upon her breast, with diamonds dripping from her ears, gold ropes laid around her neck. Well, that was until she met Uncle Sam and his shriveled white stick. Now, when he first washed up on her shores, she was stuck on his pale skin, his blonde hair and his blue eyes, and his effeminate ways. She got hooked on his gadgets and gizmos and things, and she loved him anyway. She taught him how to sing, how to swing, how to dance. She took him up north to her pyramids and showed him the secrets of the universe, and then took him down south and fed him the hidden treasures of the earth. She even tried to teach him what to do with all that. Now, things were kosher for a minute, but Uncle Sam got greedy and did her dirty. But you all know how that went down. He left her hollering discordant notes in fields as her bastard children were sold across oceans. Her enormous breasts weighing her down, breasts that have suckled great nations, now sweet milk have dried up. Her womb empty, scraped out like a barren well, only offering tears from her eyes, shed on graves to feed souls thirsting enslaved. This twisted love affair between Mother Africa and Uncle Sam has left her on welfare, left her penniless without her fair share, moaning broken hymns, wailing scales like bitter blues. In this twisted love affair between Mother Africa and Uncle Sam, there was no prenup. But Uncle Sam better watch his back. Somebody got to pay up. I want my reparations. I want my reparations. 40 acres and a mule with interest. I want my reparations. Thank you. And from that piece, there was one more poem. After the initial run of the play, there was a secondary run, and that was during Obama's, the election, 2008 Obama. So I added an epilogue to that, and it was a poem concerning the next Black president. It's a very brief one, and I'm going to share that with you. Don't believe the hype, lies. Everybody dies. We all got to go sometimes. Don't believe the words, verbs, adjectives that represent what really never went down. Has been, never is. All these folks be clowns. The real truth is in the streets. The real truth is in the streets. The real truth is streets. Lay your head down, concrete. Listen to the rumble, Underground Railroad, in between Harriet Tubman's thighs. Lies. Let the truth be told by the thousands of Africans burial grounded underneath Wall Street buildings. Lies. The real truth is in the streets. The real truth was televised, but we changed the channel. So I wait for the next Black president. Still I wait in vain for the next Black president. I will hang up my black, red, and green for the red, white, and blue, and march at the head of the line in the next Rainbow Parade in Washington, D.C. The real truth is in the streets. The real truth is in the streets. The real truth is. Don't believe the hype. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. And I see Thelma is right on time to come and share her
Okay.
story.
You want me to come and tell a story?
Yeah.
Well,
I
you
love
know, remember I told all about the fact that they did all these things. They had a parade
it. Yeah.
and they had a party reminded me of the stories that Vienna told about food. Because there was this preacher who was known all over the place. He was a good preacher, but he loved fried chicken. And so any opportunity that he could get to have some fried chicken, he would have. And so one of his parishioners invited him to come and have a fried chicken dinner. And he had to walk a little bit from the church to her house. And he walked across a creek, and he stumbled, and his false teeth fell into the creek. Well, when he got to the lady's house, she had a wonderful spread with all wonderful kinds of things, all kinds of dishes, things that he could eat that did not require teeth. Do you remember some of those things that he might have been able to eat that didn't require teeth? Apple pie, yes. Anybody else?
Rice.
Pudding. Mashed potatoes. What kind of other vegetables? Okra, yes. What about some collard greens? Yes, and some kale. Sweet potatoes. And he had all that, and he ate all of that. But they were watching, and finally someone said, "Preacher, what's going on? How come you don't not eating any chicken?" So he told them that the situation that happened, he was crossing the creek and his false teeth fell into the water. Well, no sooner than he had finished making that statement, a young boy who was about 12 years old was sitting there, and he jumped up and grabbed his coat, it was a little chilly, and ran out. And people continued eating. And a couple of minutes later, maybe about 20 minutes, the little boy came running in, and he had with him, and before he left, he took a piece of a great big chicken thigh with him. When he came back, he had this chicken thigh tied to a string, and to that thigh was some false teeth. So they said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I ran to the creek, and I tied the string real tight onto the chicken thigh, the drumstick, and I dropped it into the water, and the teeth came up and grabbed it. And he brought it back so that the preacher could have something to eat." And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh, I'm just so happy to be here with you guys and to share so many aspects of Juneteenth. We talked about food, we talked about religion, we talked about reparation, we talked about family. Family is so important. But it seems that even though we talk about family, food always comes up. And someone, I don't know who it was, that mentioned about how the slaves were denied food. And I remember this story about a slave who was so clever. And that's the other thing. When the slaves were on the plantations, the old master thought they were singing songs of joy and jubilee, and they just didn't know. A lot of those songs were codes, like "Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land, tell old Pharaoh, let my people go." That was a signal that Harriet Tubman is on her way. Back in the Underground Railroad, Harriet Tubman was known as the Moses of the people. So she had conductors along the Underground Railroad, and she would communicate with them and let them know, "I'm going to be at your plantation on this here night. When you sing that song, they know it's time to steal away." Whenever they heard that song, steal away, steal away, steal away to free 'cause it's time to go, 'cause Harriet was on her way. Now, Harriet had a belief system that she believed that God ordained her to be able to help so many people to make it to freedom. Now, if you got scared, and while you were on your way, she had to remind you, and she had a powerful way of reminding you that you're not turning back, not with me. And if you still insisted, I can't go no further. I know the water's right up there, but I'd rather go back. I can't, the dogs are going to be coming, and whatever excuse she had, she'd take out her pistol and say, I ain't never lost nobody and they ain't gonna start now. And that helped them to get their courage real fast. And when they got to the water, and they saw how deep that water was, but they knew Harry had that gun. So they started, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. And God did trouble the waters. And them folks was able to make it to freedom. They made it across Canada. And they saw freedom. Back in 89, I took a tour from Louisiana all the way with the Underground Railroad up to Canada. We stopped in places like St. Catharines. We went to the place where Harry Beecher Stowe wrote the book. What's it called? That's right, Uncle Tom's Cabin. And as a storyteller, I was able to perform in that venue. We then went all the way up to Canada, to Buxton, Canada, if I remember correctly. And it was June 19th. And we had children with us on the bus, and the bus was full to capacity. I think they have like maybe 36 or 42 people they could put on like this trail line or some, those touring bus. Well, I am a person that believes in following directions to the best of my ability. That's the way I was raised. I too was Catholic. So you just did what they told you to do. You don't ask no questions. Even if you're in church or out of church, you just don't ask no questions. And so, to me, when we were there, we had gotten to the bell that every enslaved person, when they made it to that bell of freedom, they would ring the bell to let everyone in the community know that someone else had made it to freedom. Well, the tour guide told all the adults on the bus that we couldn't ring that bell because we had a schedule to keep. We cannot let everybody, because they have too many adults and they only have few little children, so we're going to let the children ring the bell. Now, I don't have a problem with that because I love teaching children, and especially our history and our worth and what our ancestors went through. But something rose up in me, and I said, I'm going to ring that bell.
All right.
I've been through too much in my life for somebody to tell me I'm not going to ring this bell. And it was so surprising because usually I'm really a nice person. Until that day. And I got in front of that line, after all the children, of course. I went and got in that line, and everybody was silent. Because the tour person was really threatening me that I better not ring that bell. I didn't care. I felt like all of the ancestors were there who didn't have a chance to ring that bell, who died in misery, who died suffering in Louisiana. And knowing I met my great-grandfather, when he was a child on a plantation as a slave, listening to his stories. Nobody was going to stop me. And I walked up there with tears in my eyes, and I rang that bell, and I felt all of my ancestors all the way back from Africa to that very moment, and it was June 19th. Freedom! Freedom. Sometimes it only takes one person, like Opal Lee. One person to say, I'm not going to walk in your fear because I know who I am. Do what you got to do. Like they did to Stevens in the Bible. You know, Stevens was martyred for what he believed in. But he said, God, don't cause this to be on their charge. Forgive them. And that's what I had to say. I don't gonna forgive y'all, but I'm ringing this bell. I rang that bell. My life changed. Then, all those people who was about to jump me because I rang the bell, they got in line to ring the bell. Even the tour guide. Food was always celebrated. And when we got to the little schoolhouse, the one-room schoolhouse, and we saw the shackles that were put on our ancestors, we couldn't believe it. But yet throughout all of that, our people still sang and danced and ate and shared and loved. And as a storyteller, it is my privilege to be able to share those stories. I remember hearing that story about food being denied. And these two slaves decided that they were going to get them some food no matter what nobody said. So they knew that Master had special smoked meat in the smokehouse. So they waited till way late at night. And they snuck up. Now, to get to the smokehouse, they had to go through a graveyard. Almost like this one. It sure was, come to think of it. And so you know, it was dark. It was very dark. But they went anyway. Because they've been smelling that wonderful smoked meat, and they wanted to have some of that with some of that pop liquor from the mustard greens and collard greens and cornbread and the strawberry soda pop. They wanted some of that pork that was in there. So they tiptoed through that cemetery and in the dark, and they made their way to that smokehouse. Now, Big George told Charlie to be the watch out, to make sure Master don't come and catch him. So Big George went in there and he took his long cotton picking sack. Now you know them long cotton picking sacks. Them long cotton picking sacks about as long as all these rows of chairs. So he started filling up that cotton picking sack with that smoked meat. And Charlie said, "Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo!" That was a signal. Somebody was a-coming. So Big George hurried up and started stuffing all those things in there, and it was Master coming. Well, Charlie and Big George, they hid up in that smokehouse waiting for Master to pass. Now, Master didn't know that they was in there because they were so quiet. Master started walking away. And then Charlie, with his goofy, clumsy self, he bumped into something, and Master heard him, and Master turned around and he said, "Who that up in there?" They ain't said nothing. "Who that I say up in there?" They still didn't say nothing. So Master thought maybe it was just his imagination. So he went back to the plantation. But while he was at the smokehouse, they had another slave. He was a tattletale slave. He made it to Master's house before Master got there. And he said, Master, I just want to tell you, I know where Big George is and Charlie. They up in that smokehouse and they dividing up all that meat, Master. Master say, what? They out there and they doing what? Come on with me. Now, if they not in there, I'm gonna whoop you. Oh no, Master. They in there for sure, Master. You come see for yourself. Well, when they got there, sure enough, Master heard Big George and Charlie counting. Now, they didn't know how to count good. All they said was, 1 for me and 1 for you, 2 for you and 2 for me. 1 more for you, 1 more for me, 2 more for you. And then Charlie said, you know what? I think when we was crossing that fence to come up into from the graveyard here, I think I heard God and the devil getting ready to divide up some souls too. And they right out there now. Now that's where Master and that old tattletale slave was. When Master heard them talking about God was dividing up the souls and so was the devil, Master took off running. He didn't care no more about that smokehouse, and he been running ever since. So if you ever see a streak of lightning, that's Master still running. And he can keep on running because we're going to keep on eating our smokehouse food. Thank you.